welcome to Inside Edition to discuss national, regional, and international issues in depth. As the global population grows and urbanization continues, governments around the world are transforming their thinking on how best to meet their future energy needs. Bahrain's economic vision realized the importance of that fact and stated that protecting our natural environment will include directing investments to technologies that reduce carbon emissions, minimize pollution, and promote the sourcing of more sustainable energy. We are honored to discuss these changes and challenges with His Excellency Minister of Electricity and Water Affairs, Dr. AbdulHussain bin Mirza. But first, this for more.
Energy consumption is a huge part of our daily lives. We eat with energy. We travel with energy. We work with energy. And we even flirt with energy. But where does all of this energy come from? Today we gather most of our energy from coal, oil and natural gas, also known as fossil fuels. Additionally, we gather energy from biomass, nuclear and renewables. Fossil fuels consist of extracted decomposed organisms and plants that existed millions of years ago. Biomass converts plants into biometric material to produce energy. Nuclear energy is released during nuclear fusion. Lastly, renewable energy comes from a source that's not depleted when used, such as wind or solar power. But what's the profound difference between them? How they affect our planet? Fossil fuels cost more than what we pay at the pump and impacts our environment in many ways. These impacts include global warming, air quality deterioration, oil spills, and acid rain. It's also projected that fossil fuel resources will be depleted within the next 50 to 100 years. Biomass and nuclear energy also have similar issues. We need a solution relatively fast, and luckily we have one. Renewable energy comes from resources which naturally replenish in our lifetime, whereas fossil fuels are a one-time use resource in the human timescale. Resources for renewable energy include sunlight, wind, rain, tides, waves and geothermal heat. The best part is that we don't need to compromise our planet to harness it, nor do we have to rely on other nations for these resources, which history has shown to be a contributor to war, famine and political instability. So, how do we get this to look like this? Presently we have the technology to be 100% renewable reliant. The truth is, our infrastructure is built around our fossil fuel dependency. If we could convert our infrastructure to what's known as a supergrid, we would be able to rely on clean, renewable energy. So, what's it going to be? Will our children live in a world full of pollution? Or should they continue the path of evolution?
Welcome back to the studio, and joining us is Dr. AbdulHussain bin Mirza. Thank you very much for being with us and answering some of our questions today. Doctor, in a contemporary technological society, energy significantly affects most of our lives and most of the things that we do in our life. And it plays an integral part in who we are and what we do. What is the importance of the transition to sustainable energy now?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be with you here in Bahrain Television. Perhaps before I go and answer that question, I give your viewers and audiences what are the definitions involved. Energy, many people confuse energy with oil. Oil and gas are called fossil fuel energy, and they are part of the energy. Then there is the alternative energy, alternative to fossil fuel. That alternative energy then is divided into two parts. One of them is renewable, one of them is not renewable. For example, nuclear is not renewable, whilst solar and wind are renewable because they renew themselves continuously over billions of years. So in the case of transformation, many people ask that this region, like the Gulf area, the Arabian Gulf, have plenty of oil and gas. So why do we need to go and transition to sustainable energy.
Yeah.
For example, our neighbor, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, has one of the largest oil reserves in the world.
True.
But you hear them announce that they want now to go big into solar and renewable energy.
Right.
The reason is, as I think in the old days, one of the, I think Dr. Ahmed Zaki Amani said, the Stone Age did not went out because we ran out of stones, but because new technology came. The same thing now with renewable energy. The cost of renewable energy has really dropped by about 80% in the last few years.
Awesome.
Also, it is now there is lots of pressure by different organizations realizing that there is climate change and the impact that it has on nations and the population in the future. So these pressure groups on environment ask that we should restrain the pollution, the CO2 pollution in the air. That's why, for example, the Paris COP, climate change,
Yes.
everybody signed to it that they will commit themselves to reducing the emissions by certain percentage throughout the year.
Yes.
The one way of doing that is to use renewable energy, because solar and wind are absolutely clean, 100%. And the more you use them, the more the air will not be affected. Because if you continue now with fossil fuel and other fuels, what will happen in the future? Slowly, the environment will get polluted. And one day, our grandchildren will be wearing masks, like it happens in certain countries, in certain towns in China.
Yeah.
So that's why it is important now for countries to move and transform to the renewable energy.
Yes.
The other factor is that because if you look at how the global scene is changing, countries like the Denmark and other European countries have declared that by 2050 they will ban the use of fossil fuel, which
Yes.
is oil and gas, and
Yeah.
in their case coal. And certain countries like Britain and France have said that by 2040, now they have brought it to 2030, they will ban the use of petrol and diesel in cars, which are
Yes.
fossil fuel. That means there is a transition overall. And what is more interesting, that some of the major reinsurance companies which insure the huge assets of the energy sector, like Allianz, for
Yes.
example, they have said by 2050 they will not insure the fossil fuel-based assets.
Okay.
So that means countries have to plan now for the future and move to clean energy and take advantage of the fact that the technology has improved so much in the renewable energy area that the cost of renewable now is competitive with the traditional conventional cost.
Yes.
And this, of course, is another incentive for countries to go into this.
Yes.
Now, for us in Bahrain, for example, the government of Bahrain are going also through this transformation, and the government, the cabinet approved the establishment of a center for renewable energy and energy efficiency.
Yes.
We called it initially SEU, Sustainable Energy Unit. It reports directly to the Minister of Electricity and Water, and its mandate is to two things. One is to encourage the use and investment in renewable energy in Bahrain. Two, to improve the efficiency of what we have in terms of energy. And the Sustainable Energy Unit, we signed an agreement with UNDP, United Nations Development Program, so that they provide us with expertise and bases the expertise, knowledge, and the knowledge of our own people in SEU. We have met with all the ministries and authorities in Bahrain.
Yes.
And basis these findings, we have prepared 2 national documents.
Okay.
One of them is called National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, NEAP, and one of them is called National Renewable Energy Action Plan. These 2 documents have been prepared scientifically, in other words, looking at what actually is happening in the various ministries, what are the possibilities, what are the new technologies. Yes. And each one of them is about 70 pages.
Wow.
And we presented this to the cabinet, and the cabinet has approved the National Renewable Energy Action Plan and National Energy Efficiency Action Plan. Each one of these contains what we need to do in Bahrain to achieve the national targets, which the cabinet has approved now.
Yes.
The national targets, which were initially recommended by SEU, is that by the year 2025, we will have 5% renewable in our energy mix.
Okay.
Currently, it is 100% fossil fuel,
Yes.
100% natural gas, basically. So by 2025, it will be 5% renewable and 95% fossil fuel. And then by 2035, it will be 10% renewable and the balance sort of conventional fuel. In the case of energy efficiency, we recommended a target of 6% improvement in the use of energy that we have by the year 2025. To achieve that 6%, in the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, there are 22 initiatives or projects which were identified. For each one of these 22 initiatives, SEU have calculated how much each one of them contributes in improving the efficiency of the energy and what is the amount which we can save from it for Bahrain.
Yes.
Now, these 22 initiatives cover almost all aspects. They cover buildings, government, EWA, transport,
Yes.
You name it, all. Examples of this, for example, we have what we call, air conditioning.
Yes.
Air conditioning uses 60% of the electricity consumption. So now we have new specifications for air conditioning, and to enable the consumer to be aware of the consumption, they are labeled. All the new air conditions are labeled and they have stars on them.
Yes.
So 7 star is the best, the consumption is less, then you go to 6, 5 and so on.
Yeah.
So this has already been done, and the old air conditioning have been banned to come into Bahrain. Lighting, for example, all the tungsten lights are banned now in Bahrain, and we are moving to more efficient lighting like LED.
Yes.
So now there is an agreement that all the government buildings have to have LED, whether they are owned by the government or rented by the government, they have to be LED. We are going to label through, of course, the committees that we have, that in future all household appliances like fridges, ovens, everything else will be labeled, so that the consumer, when he goes to buy it, he knows now what he's doing as far as efficiency is concerned.
Yes.
And also the Ministry of Industry and Commerce and Tourism have started labeling the new cars.
Yes.
So on the new cars, you see a label which has different color codes.
Correct.
It shows how efficient the car is, and it ticks against the one which this car fits in.
Exactly.
So this is the first step. The next step in the car and mobility side is to go to hybrid and electric cars.
Yes.
The electric cars, of course, now is taking off in most parts of the world, and they are basically going to allow the roads to be free of pollution.
Yes,
in
which
the
is
future.
a big step to
Yeah.
be done, especially in an island like Bahrain.
Right.
And I think there was even a trial a few years ago where they did introduce a hybrid car, but it didn't take off as well as everybody thought it would. But awareness is the key word here, isn't it?
Two things, awareness and availability of cheaper alternatives.
Yes.
See, in the past, for example, gasoline was cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, Mumtaz was sold at 100 fils and Jayid at 80 fils.
Yes.
And what was happening, people said, why should we bother with hybrid when we have cheap fuel?
Exactly.
Now, of course, with the changes in the subsidies, the price of gasoline has gone up.
Correct.
And strangely enough, when the price of gasoline went up, there were two prices. There was a price higher up for Mumtaz and price for Jayid.
Yeah.
So people, because it affects their pocket, they changed. For example, before increase in prices of the gasoline, people had 60%, they fill in their cars Mumtaz, 40% Jayid, because it was cheap.
Yeah.
Now that it's not so cheap, it's the reverse. 60% are using Jayid, and it's moving to 70 now.
Wow.
And the others Mumtaz. So it is bringing awareness. Plus, the electric cars with the technology that is happening and so on, it has no sound, doesn't bother the sound. It is clean. It is going to be as good as the normal car. So that is where things are going. In the 22 initiatives also, we have a green building code. A green building code is, for example, this will be handled by the Ministry of Works and Municipalities and Urban Planning with the help of SEU and, of course, the Office of the First Deputy Prime Minister. We have prepared the draft document of Green Building Code, and hopefully the first draft will be out December in 2 months' time. What does this contain? There are mandatory standards when you want to build a house. In other words, when anybody wants to go and take a work permit to build the house, he must comply with certain mandatory requirements.
Yes.
For example, insulation.
Yeah.
Insulation specifications will be in the Green Building Code as well. And basically, we are making it better specifications, and this will come into effect 1st of March 2019.
Better, you mean safer for the environment, safer for the people living there, and better provision of service to the person there.
What it means is that when you have better solution, the heat doesn't penetrate into the room.
Yes.
So therefore, you don't have to, because it is how much the heat or the outside pressure penetrates into the room. So the more strict you are, the more you have protection. So for example, if we look at it in a simplified way, if there was no insulation, if the electricity goes off and you have air conditioning, in few minutes you feel the heat.
Yes.
But if you have insulation, if the electricity goes off, you can have it maybe for 1 hour, 2 hours, still cool, because you're not allowing the heat to come in. Plus, of course, the Green Building Code will have regulations on the specification for water, how to best utilize the water. And there are also voluntary things in it, like, for example, using different, like solar and so on in the house. And basis these two combined, the mandatory and the voluntary, then the building will be labeled.
Yes.
How good it is. So if somebody wants to buy a house, he will know now that this house will save him in consumption 30 to 40 or whatever is the labeling of the house is.
Yes.
So this is being worked on.
Your Excellency, at this point, I just want to say EWA is actually providing support and help to people who do want to buy right now, accommodate this green zone and green energy within their houses if they're building them or so on. Is that correct?
Well, EWA, of course, helps in this process. For example, we are also now going into smart meters.
Yes.
So all the new projects are smart meters. The smart meters are provided by EWA. And we have more than 300,000 old meters which need to be replaced by smart meters. So we have a program to replace them. And if somebody wants to replace his old because he wants to use now solar energy, he can go to EWA and they will change it to him to smart meters. Well, the advantage of smart meters, it has many advantages. First of all, there is no need for somebody physically to go and visit the house to read the meter. And therefore, there is no need in case that doesn't happen to have an estimate. Because now the reading automatically is generated and it's available in the head office or the center that controls this. So you can read it from remote. The second advantage, the smart meter allows net metering, and this is another thing which we have done and it was approved and it's implemented from 1st of January 2018. Net metering means, for example, any person, whether he is a householder or whether he is a business, let's take a householder, and Mr. X, he wants to put solar in his house. So he goes and through a qualified contractor, they install solars in his house. The electricity that he generates from his solar system, he can consume in his house. And EWA will not bill him for it because now he's using different source. In the winter, when he has surplus, because he doesn't use the air conditioning and so on, of this electricity which he generated from solar, he can return it to the national grid, which is operated by EWA, and get a credit. So this way, the householder can have solar and also have it economically viable. Okay. So now the other advantage of a smart meter is this, that it allows the householder and EWA to read the same through the same meter. He says how much I charge you, that one says how much I charge you. That's why it's called net meter. Now, these 22 initiatives, like I said, for each one of them, we have calculation how much energy in quantity wise it saves and how much value the government will save from it. So that is National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, and I can go and all that. I had a chart. I don't know whether people can show it.
The chart did go online.
Yeah.
But also at this point, we also want to mention when it comes to elaborating on what fossil fuel is and green energy is. Fossil fuel was the thing of the century at the time when it came out. It helped move locomotives, it helped move cars, it helped people go from one place to another quickly and fast and efficiently. But like everything, there's also side effects of that. And climate change is a very big side effect of fossil fuel emission and the gases that are emitted from them. And now clean energy, going back to the roots, is basically the solution to it. How is Bahrain, when it comes to accepting different sources of energy, how do you feel the acceptance from the society will be? Is it going to be a fast integration of the new energy?
Well, anything new, of course, generally people hesitate to use. So initially, the first pilot project we did was in 2012. We installed 5 megawatt of solar energy in the town of Awali. So if one goes to that town, he sees all the car shades are solar panels. There are solar panels on the light poles and on the roof of the houses. Now that was 5 megawatt. At that time there was some hesitation and some resistance because they said this is new, why do we need this? Will it integrate with what we have now and this? That was done and it has proven that it works and it works well. So that has been 6 years.
Yeah.
And basis that success, of course, like I said, we have now a center for sustainable energy, which does both. Plus, we have been sort of pushing for policies to encourage the use of renewable.
Yes.
One of the policies is what I said, net metering, which encourages people to go. The other policy is, we call it tender-based feed-in tariff, because we have limited size of land, and for solar you need large area of land. We have surveyed how many government-owned buildings we have, mainly schools and hospitals. So we have identified about 535 buildings.
Okay.
And we have engaged consultants to visit some of these houses physically to see how much space they have on the roof and the car parks and so on. And we can see that there is a good size available of the roof, which can be replacing the land.
And utilized.
And utilized. So now we are going in December, that's in 2 months' time, we will be putting out to tender 50 of these buildings for the developers to come. So developers will compete, they will finance, they will build, they will manage, and they will maintain the solar system on the government buildings in return for a tariff.
Yes.
And we expect that tariff to be less than the conventional tariff. So here the government saves the capital cost because now the private sector is doing that.
Yeah.
Plus it gets electricity cheaper and people will benefit by it.
Perfect.
So that is of course another policy. The third policy which we want to use to encourage people, and this is being discussed, and we are hoping to incorporate it in the Green Building Code, which I mentioned earlier, is to make it sort of mandatory for new buildings, new malls, new big towers and so on, to have certain percentage of renewable in the initial design.
Okay.
Because if they put it in the design, it is cheaper. And now, for example, you have window glasses which are solar panels and so on. So there are many new technologies coming. And we are encouraging the malls. For example, we talked to the Avenues Mall.
Yeah.
And if you go now visit Avenue Mall, the new car park, which is 3-story high, they have installed solar panels. There are 880 solar panels there.
Massive number.
And we went there, and they are happy, and it's connected. Now today in the press, both Arabic and English, I noticed that there is an advert by Seif Mall in Muharraq. They are inviting contractors and bidders to bid for solar energy on their properties.
Awareness is happening.
So awareness slowly is creeping in, and we already have 10 houses, Ministry of Housing houses, which have solar for 1/3 of their consumption in the house, and it's connected to the national grid, and the people are very happy with it.
Yes.
And we have about 17 requests for new ones. These are all, of course, relatively new, but the awareness is slowly creeping in. And I want to thank you because this is an opportunity to raise awareness.
This is amazing, and that's really what we want to do. Especially, you already mentioned it, the Ministry of Housing has had a very big task the years before and this year in basically providing the housing units for these citizens. And it's also a very big opportunity because, as you said, the prices of renewable energy sources have gone down massively. I mean, one panel costs a lot less than it did 1.5 years ago,
Right.
and they are available in Bahrain, and we have contractors in Bahrain that are trained and skilled and have the equipment, and basically it's just about doing more for the environment. Also, what I want to ask you is, now we know that we have renewable energy and we have sustainable development goals ahead of us, but what are the challenges that are faced by the kingdom in ensuring sustainability and security of its energy needs in a general manner? What it needs? What if we run out at some point from the renewable energy or the green energy?
Well, of course, Bahrain is planning to diversify the source of its energy. We still will be relying mainly on fossil fuel for many, many years to come. But we want to supplement that with renewable energy. And some countries in the Gulf are diversifying even further. For example, they go for fossil fuel plus renewable, plus nuclear, and so on. Some of our, for example, the UAE is doing that.
Yeah.
Why they want to do that? Because the more you diversify the source, then you are not sort of confined to one energy.
You can still
and
choose.
if the prices drop, like happened in the June 2014 onwards, when the price of crude dropped from $115 to around $30, many countries who relied solely or mainly on fossil fuel had a deficit in the budget.
Yes.
So preparing for the future is better to diversify.
Yeah.
Plus, of course, renewable has many advantages. One of them, it is sustainable. It stays forever. It will
Yes.
never go out.
Yeah.
Whilst fossil fuel may one day in the long term go out.
Yes.
Second, it is clean, so it doesn't pollute the environment. Third, it provides new job opportunities, because this is a new type of skills, and we have done 2 training sessions for people, and they are very keen to join. Young boys and girls, even girls are coming and training for solar installations. And there are many new businesses are coming up in the solar energy side in Bahrain. Plus, number 4, the cost of it is now competitive with the traditional conventional fossil fuel.
Yeah.
And the most important thing, for example, from the government side, it saves the gas, because currently we use gas to generate electricity. If we use solar to generate electricity, we save that gas. And that gas is a strategic resource that the government can keep for future generations, or use it in the strategic projects like expansion of major industries like Alba, Babco, GPIC, and so on.
Exactly. You actually recently announced that the Ministry of Electricity and Water, the consumption of electricity in Bahrain has gone down by almost 46% due to the use of energy saving products and less use of water and so on. What can you tell us about those numbers?
46 is, I have not heard this figure. Let's look at the consumption of electricity. Now we have now currently from conventional, that is gas-based electricity, we have 5 power stations. 3 of them are private. The capacity available from these 5 is 3,920 megawatts.
Okay.
The peak consumption happens in the summer, actual, because this is the capacity available, 3,920, let's say 4,000, a rounding. The peak that happened this year was in June, 7th of June 2018, and it was 3,437.
Yes.
3,437. This, of course, means that we have used less than our capacity. So we have enough capacity for few years to come, because each year there is increase. But if we compare this peak in 2018, 3,437, with the peak last year, which was in August 2017, that was 3,527. So there is about a reduction, right? this reduction, of course, when we were planning for this year, we thought that there will be increase because there are more population, there is more estates, there are more properties.
Yes, of course.
And that shows that there is an awareness of conservation now in Bahrain. We hope this is one factor.
Hopefully.
The other factor is that with the change in tariff, you know, people become more conscious to make sure that they can do the same thing with less. And this is, for example, this is what we call improving the efficiency of what you have.
Yes.
And people are going to that. And EWA has a department for conservation,
yes.
and they issue awareness campaigns. And the second goal of SEU is to bring about this awareness about the need to conserve energy.
Yes.
Because conserving energy means you don't have to spend capital too much, but you will save you know, a large quantity of that energy,
yes.
which means you can sustain it longer.
Longer time. Well, you've talked to us a little bit about how the government already exerts tremendous efforts to support the issues of sustainability. But can you tell us more about you mentioned the Ministry of Municipalities, you mentioned the Housing Ministry. Can you mention a little bit more about the government's efforts in this side?
Okay. Now, the Cabinet, when they approved the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan and National Renewable Action Plan, also approved the formation of a committee made up of different ministries.
Yes.
You know, senior people from different ministries who have, who are concerned with energy efficiency and renewable energy. And they said this committee should be chaired by the Minister of Electricity and Water.
Yes.
We call it in Implementation and Follow-up Committee, IFC.
Yeah.
This committee has 14 members. The members are from the First Deputy Prime Minister's Office, from Ministry of Finance,
okay.
from Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Works, Ministry of Housing, Environment, you know, Economic Development Board. And we meet to ensure that we implement what are in these two plans. So the
yes.
government effort is coordinated.
Perfect.
And I report regularly to the Cabinet and to the Coordination Committee, which is headed by His Highness the Crown Prince, the progress that we make on these implementation of the 22 initiatives
yeah.
and the renewable energy initiatives. For example, one of the renewable energy projects, which His Highness the Crown Prince asked that should be done, is to have a 100 megawatt solar farm.
Okay.
So that project, we have tendered it out, and we have received the bids, and a land has been allocated for it. It's a landfill in Askar, and the final bids we will receive by 7th of November.
Okay, pretty soon.
Pretty soon.
Yeah.
And the bids that we receive, we will find out how much cheaper it is or not compared with the conventional. But the statistics show, and we follow this closely, I follow this closely because I go to the various conferences and the articles that are issued.
Yeah.
The lowest price per kilowatt hour, this is was bid, was in Saudi Arabia recently for Sakaka project, and it was 9 fils our currency. Yeah. 9 fils. Now 9 fils is the cost of the production of for 300 megawatt project.
Yes, that's huge.
Let's compare that with the conventional cost. Our conventional cost in the invoice is 29 fils per kilowatt hour, but that includes transmission and distribution, which is 7 fils. So if we remove the 7 fils deducted from the 29, we get 22 fils.
Yeah.
Now, this bid was 9 fils, So 9 fills is cheaper than, of course, 22.
22.
But of course, the 9 fills is for a larger project. So that shows you that it is going to be competitive in future. And we hope that with the bids we receive for the 100 megawatt, we will be in a better position to know exactly how much it will cost.
Yes. Well, that's the next question I want to ask you about. Now, the bids are coming from companies within Bahrain, but are there any international cooperations when it comes to this field?
Well, normally, of course, there is international. There are companies which are made up of consortiums. They are local and international and regional. And these companies bid for projects in Bahrain, and the renewable, now we have Adur 2, which is our private conventional power station. In the case of renewable, for example, the bids that come in is made up of local, regional, and international.
Yeah.
And then there is an evaluation committee which will look at all this basis criteria for technical and financial, and they say that this is what is the best thing for Bahrain to do.
Especially that it has to fit Bahrain's terrain, its geography, and everything that comes with that. Well, Bahrain has launched a number of projects and initiatives in the field of sustainable energy. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Okay, let's go first on the Bahrain. On 1st of January 2017, the first solar assembly factory in Bahrain happened. Yeah. That's called Solar One, and we integrated it, and they tell me they are doing very well. They produce about 60,000 solar panels a year. They want now to increase it to 90,000.
Okay.
Then we have a pilot project which we did in Awali, 5 megawatt. Tatweer Petroleum, we did a 1 megawatt pilot project. They want to increase it to 5. And now EWA has a project which is 3 megawatt solar, 2 megawatt wind. And the first 2 wind turbines have already been installed near Adur power plant.
Yes.
So if you are going to over King Hamad highway to Adur, you see it on the left hand side.
Okay.
In addition to this, for example, all the private companies are all thinking of solar, and we have spoken to the Minister of Justice and the Awqaf, and the Matams and Masjids now are going for solar.
Yes.
So we have integrated one solar project, and there are 620 Matams. All of them want to have solar.
And all of them are working almost year round. So
yes. Yeah. We have asked a Danish company to prepare for us a wind atlas.
Yeah.
Which shows where are the wind available enough in Bahrain to install solar turbines to generate renewable energy.
Depending on the currents.
Yes. And already now we have lots of interest in this.
Beautiful, beautiful. How do you value such cooperations with international companies?
Very good, actually. We have met with all types of nationalities because everybody is going that way.
Yes.
You know, for example, sometimes we have Japanese, Chinese, British, French, Spanish, Hungarian, American, you name it. So everybody is, because this is a new area and it is expanding. The rate of growth in renewable is much faster than any other rate.
Yes. Are the sources of clean energy also as diverse?
They are, because of course, see, let's take renewable energy.
Yeah.
Renewable energy, it could be wind source, it could be solar source, and in countries who have rivers, they could be waterfalls source, or it could be you know, the waves in the sea and so on. So there are many sources. We have said we will concentrate on wind, solar, and waste to energy.
Yes.
Because unfortunately, some of the waste gets wasted, as they say.
There you go.
So now we can use that waste to generate electricity. So first of all, you protect the environment.
Yes.
Also, you have electricity or power or energy. And that already there is one project which Ministry of Works, Municipalities and Urban Planning, with the help of SEU, are in the process of finalizing to convert the sludge which is produced from Tubli Bay
Yeah.
to energy.
Yeah.
Because that sludge then we don't need to get rid of it. You can convert it to energy.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Mirza, we are going to take a short break, and after that we're going to talk about how the society and the community can do more to save energy and provide green energy in Bahrain. Welcome back. Now, the Ministry of Electricity and Water Affairs has done its fair share in providing the service and the vendors and the technology of green energy. And now it is the turn of the people that will buy these services in order to have a better and sustainable life. Now, it is very understandable, like buying a new car. When you first buy the car, you have to put that big amount of money in order to buy it, and then the price of it gets easier and easier because petroleum or fossil fuel is cheaper. But is it the same kind of value when we talk about renewable energy and green energy? The payments we put in the beginning, will it be sustainable in the end? Will it actually be of service to us?
Well, that's a very good question. Let's take an example, for example. If Mr. X puts solar in his house, that solar system lasts for 25 years.
Yes.
So when he agrees how much it cost him initially, he knows now for the next 25 years how much is his cost.
Correct.
Whilst the cost of the conventional electricity, which is 29 fils,
Yes.
he doesn't have guarantee that it will stay the same in the next 25
Correct.
years. And most likely, 25 years is a long time, so that cost may go up.
Yes.
So therefore, he shouldn't just look at it now, compare it. Although now it is competitive, it will be much more competitive in the long term.
Yes.
And he will get back his the investment that he put in. Plus, there will be a period when he, after his payback, he will get that part of electricity that generates from solar free.
Yes.
Because he has already paid it and he recovered his capital. We are also talking to banks and to Tamkeen, and I want to thank Tamkeen that they contribute to encourage the solar use of solar energy, and we have had meetings with them where they will hopefully participate by paying part of the capital cost for the individual.
Yes.
And also maybe part of the interest if he borrows the money and arrange a loan which is over a period. It's
Yes.
just to facilitate for the people to use solar energy.
Yes.
Now here also there is, like the government is doing these things to encourage the citizens and the residents to use solar energy. There is a duty on the community and on the people themselves, or that they want to use solar energy or wind energy because it is clean energy.
Yes.
It is for their future generations, for their grandchildren of theirs, and they should be realizing by participating in this and using it, it's not only just the financial return, it is the health of the future generation, it is the sort of sustainability of the energy for the future generations.
Yes. Yes.
So all these factors have to be taken into account. And I guess what we want to do, and we have engaged a company, a consulting company, to do a communication strategy for us to make people aware that you know, going through using renewable energy has many advantages.
Yes.
And many of them who cannot afford it, there will be some help in some form or another for them. And also that you know, this is like a social responsibility at the end of the day, that you want to protect the environment.
Yes. Well, Doctor, let me try to elaborate on what you said and also ask you a backup question. Now, when people actually do this, they're doing this for themselves and the future of their children, which is a very close future. People who have a newborn today, after 25 years, this child will be probably in university, starting their own family. They're providing this child with a good future. At the same time, also, these costs that are coming upon us from fossil fuels are going to get immensely high, because fossil fuel is a materialistic kind of it's a material. It will end up finishing at some point of time, whether it's after 50 or after 500 years, it doesn't matter. People are existing and they're living on, and this is something that they will not be able to live on for the rest of their lives. Plus, it of course pollutes waters, it pollutes the air, it pollutes the surrounding areas, and it causes this immense heat and this humidity, which in return causes us to use more air conditioning, using up more energy, and also using or providing more pollution through the air conditioning system. So my question to you is, if hypothetically we said Bahrain started today that 60% of its population went all green energy, will the changes be very fastly seen? The cleanness of the air, the changes in the atmosphere in general?
It will be seen, maybe not immediately, but over a period. But I like to go back to your question about fossil fuel. I don't want, because I was Minister of Energy and I was in charge of fossil.
It's still a good fuel, I understand.
I have spent all my life in the oil industry.
Yeah.
Fossil fuel has its advantages, and they are working on making it cleaner.
Yes.
You know, because they realize renewable is coming and it's clean, so they are working on that. And fossil fuel will be still required for a long time to come. However, when it comes to renewable, that is the thing that will help or supplement the fossil fuel. The countries who want to go completely out, you can see, have planned by the year 2050, which is many years from now.
Yes.
However, between now and then, the technology changes, and renewable also technology changes. For example, now to put 1 megawatt of solar energy, you need 15,000 square meters of land.
Yes.
But in 5 to 10 years, my guess is it will be like the iPhone.
Yeah.
The telephone was like a block before. Now it's a small one, has more information, better information, faster information.
Exactly.
So that will happen.
Technology will change.
So it means that you will require less space of land in future. So technology is moving very fast. And I guess we have to not think making decision today, but think what could happen in the future.
Yes. Well, Dr. AbdulHussain, we've almost gotten to the end of our show, but at the end, I would like to hear from you. What can people do today? How can we make them more aware, and what can they do from now in order to make this green energy a more successful thing in Bahrain?
First of all, let's look at the efficiency side. I think every house, every father and mother should encourage their children from when they are young how to save water, how to save electricity. For example, they show them that if you are not in the room, put the lights off.
Yes.
If you are washing your teeth, don't let the water run all the time.
Yes.
Things like this, which means you are now bringing a new culture, a culture that says, I can save the resources and sustain it more and still get the same service.
Yes.
And this is something which I think the fathers and mothers and the family can do and bring up their children that way. That is one side. Of course, the schools have to do that as well to show people, and the Electricity and Water Authority, the Conservation Department visit the schools to tell the children what that conservation is good, it makes it green in the future and so on. In addition to all this, people like to remember the good old days when life was clean, there were many trees, there was greenery. If you talk to people in Bahrain, for example, the Budaya Road was full of trees and things like this. So that needs to be revived somehow. And if the families, if the individuals all think this way, think of their social responsibility, their social duty, that they have to maintain this environment as clean or even better for the future generation as they found it.
Yes.
Because otherwise, if they think only for now whilst they are living, they think, okay, let them take care of themselves in the future. But what we do today affects what happens in the future.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Doctor, for being with us today and for giving us all of this information. With us with Dr. AbdulHussain bin Mirza. And we would like to thank you, dear viewers, for watching, and see you next week in another episode of Inside Edition.